Everyone standing here knows that the shit is hitting the fan. You know, I can't put it any other way. I don't like to cuss, but, you know, that's the only way to put it. You know, you sit here, you look at it, and you look at the flu, you look at everything that's being released out of the permafrost and everything. We got stuff that's being released that we've never even seen as the human race. And that's because we're dying at the hands of our own destruction. You know, our dependence on fossil fuels, on coal, on everything has become way too much. The ocean is dying, our rivers are dying. Mother Earth is literally fighting back, and she's pulling everything away from us. You know, me growing up on the mouth of my river, I grew up a fisherman. I'm a fisherman by blood. I'm not a fisherman by choice. We're the salmon people. We have a sacred promise that we hold to the salmon. And me growing up on the river, I knew the ocean was dying a long time ago. Watching our salmon come in, they come in with diseases, they come in with cancer cells, they come in less and less and less. So, my hands go up to each and every one of you for being here. And the first speaker of the night is Steve Storms from Redefined Tacoma.
Thank you, Dakota. My name is Steve Storms, and I'm a retired chemical engineer. Been working in the energy and environmental side for over 40 years. I didn't really want to become involved with this, but my wife made me look at it. And when I did, this was so obscene that there was no way that I could not. There's many, many different reasons why people should oppose this. The environmental is probably the biggest one, but the people over in Tacoma also are worried about the safety and then the financial. So I'm going to hit on all three of those real quickly. Safety first. The Puget Sound Energy claims that they can keep everything in a safety zone of 550 feet on their property line. They say they have a fence that will hold it in. This is a chain link fence that's got slats in it. And I did the calculations, and on this 33 acres, it would hold all of the LNG. But it is slatted fence, and as soon as it warms up above the 260 degrees below zero that the temperature is, this fence is going to be 600 times too short because LNG expands 600 times. So they can say that the fence is big enough to hold it. They can't. It'll be 600 times. It needs to be like it's 8 or 10 feet tall, so it needs to be 600 feet tall. They can't hold it in. The temperatures that LNG works at, it's at 260 degrees below zero, and you don't know how cold that is. That is extremely cold. Most people are below zero. It freezes things. They showed a picture the other day of a head of cabbage that they put in LNG, and then they threw it on the ground and it fractured. Then they put a steel pipe in there, and then they hit it with a hammer. It fractured just to pieces. Extreme cold. On the other end, when it burns at 3,500 degrees. You don't understand what 3,500 degrees. Molten lava is around 2,000 degrees. This is much, much hotter than anything you can imagine. If you look at a oven when you cremate people, that's at about 1,400 degrees. This is many times hotter than what you cremate people with. The people, if anything happens at this plant, there will be a cremation zone, not only a blast zone, but a cremation zone. The fire station right next to it is going to be vaporized, and there'll be a puddle of metal where the fire engine used to be. This is just right across the street. So safety, 550 feet is ridiculous. The emergency response guide from the fire station says that 4 million gallons for every well that they drill. And when they are drilling, they put these drill pads and put 6 or 8 or 10 wells on each drill pad that go out down about a mile and then over about a mile. And then 2 miles away, they'll do the toxic and hazardous chemicals that they're pumping into the earth are killing people. The prenatal birth rates are just terrible. Babies are dying from this. The contamination, you don't want this. You want to keep natural gas in the ground. Financially, we're being made to pay $133 million of the $310 million project. They say that their customers are going to save $43 million a year, and that sounds like that's a pretty good investment. But find out their customers are us and Tote. Tote is going to get 40 of that million, 40 of that 43 million. So we're going to maybe save $3 million a year for a $133 million investment. We'll never get our money back. We're going to finance it. I think Toad, if they're going to reap all the benefits, ought to be paying for the capital, not us. Actually, in the environmental impact statement, they claim that the Tacoma City is going to reap an extra $60,000 a year because the rates are going to go up to the customers. And if they're only have a 10% tax, we're paying $600,000 a year more for our gas because of this plant. So it's not good safety, it's not good environmentally, and it's not good financial. This plant should never happen. Nobody should even consider it. Thank you. And I don't lose this.
You know, when I have nightmares now, it's about Steve talking and telling me technical difficulties. That's my nightmares, you know. He's so technical and he knows exactly what's going on, you know, and I love him for that. You know, Puget Sound Energy cannot stand that man, and I promise you that. They cannot stand him. There's videos of Cruella DeVille on there. That's Steve Storms! All right, I love you, Steve. Oh, man. All right, so our next speaker up is Jerry Cuffley from Washington State Physicians for Social Responsibility, Medical Voice on Health Impacts, Fossil Fuels, and Climate Change.
Thank you very much. So my name is Jerry Cuffley. I'm a retired physician, and I'm here because I got involved with WPSR. How's that? Is that better? Okay. So, and I have to say, I'm inspired by seeing you all here. I think your presence is a testament to the persistence and determination it's going to take to win the war on fossil fuels. So I'm here to talk a little bit about climate change and health. It's no exaggeration that without mitigation of greenhouse gases and their emissions, global warming will be the cause of the greatest public health crisis ever known to mankind. I'm going to say that again. Without mitigation of emissions of greenhouse gases, global warming will be the cause of the greatest public health crisis ever known to mankind. Heat waves are already a significant health problem. When the core temperature of the body rises above 105 degrees, mortality multiplies among those with cardiovascular, respiratory, and neurologic conditions. Global warming brings with it many diseases that will be seen in places in the earth that we don't see now. These are carried by vectors, and they carry diseases such as malaria, plague, Zika virus, yellow fever, and also Lyme disease and West Nile fever, which are both found in the state of Washington. Heavier rains and rising sea levels will cause more flooding, and with the flooding combined with warmer temperatures will come cholera epidemics, as well as increases in other waterborne diseases. Drought, along with floods, will lead to climate refugees the world over, and the many health issues that arise with massive migrations. I grew up in Seattle, actually West Seattle, and I've lived here in the Puget Sound area almost my entire life. I'm sure that some of you have, as I have, watched our summer skies become smokier. This was especially the case this past summer when smoke drifted down from British Columbia and over from eastern Washington, right into our own backyards. The smoke not only obscured the views of our precious mountains, but it also spread particulate matter, giving rise to surges in emergency room visits and hospitalizations. Warmer, longer, drier summers have extended the forest fire season. But the increase in forest fire damage is not linear. Rather, it's exponential. Because the fuels are drier, the fires are bigger and more intense. This is all due to the warming that comes from burning fossil fuels. Without mitigation of the emission of greenhouse gases, it is estimated that forest fire activity in the western United States will increase fourfold in the decades to come. Although relatively brief, forest fire pollution is widespread and affects millions per episode. More consistently, air pollution comes from industry and transportation exhaust, which aggravates asthma, COPD, precarious cardiovascular conditions, and allergies. Heart attacks increase in frequency during periods of high pollution. And coronary artery disease with decreased lifespan is associated with areas of chronically high air pollution, as is now documented in northern China. The psychological oppression of air pollution is felt by us all, but disproportionately affects those with marginally compensated psychological and psychiatric conditions. In some respects, the Pacific Northwest is relatively less threatened by global warming. Nevertheless, the socially and economically disadvantaged of us are disproportionately affected. This is because of less healthy living conditions and working conditions, decreased access to quality health care, and increased likelihood of displacement. Any policies put in place to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions need to take into account the disproportionate burden carried by the socially and economically disadvantaged. Some say that because a large part of our electrical energy in Washington state comes from hydroelectric dams, we don't need to decrease our carbon footprint. I don't buy it. Just as, for example, Canada and the United States share their forest fire smoke, greenhouse gases do not recognize borders. This must be a global effort. 60% of the electrical power that PSE produces comes from the burning of fossil fuels. This has to change. The means are at hand to switch to cleaner and ultimately cheaper renewables. That's solar and wind. The other necessary ingredient is the will, and that's us, people like you and me. Thank you.
Words. Our next speaker up is Denise Heyman from Boys Men Talk About Coal.
Thank you. I'm Representative. Oh, real close. I'm Representative Denise Heyman from Bozeman, Montana. I am delighted to be here today. You are an awesome group. Awesome. Can I clone you and take you back to Montana? It's very cool. So, why am I here? I'm here to get warmer. No, it was like 6 below in Bozeman yesterday, so it's delightful here. But no, the real reason I'm here is because of climate change. And I am going to be Miss Sally Sunshine and share some positive things about climate change. Gallup poll, just done, stated that 70% of people surveyed now believe in climate change. And an additional 20% are greatly worried about climate change. So that's an improvement. 2010, Iowa, conservative Iowa, 15% of their energy was state of Colorado. The utility there received a quote on solar, wind, and storage that was probably $30 less per kilowatt than what they're paying for coal. So I'm just telling you, there is some good news out there, and we need to build on it. And I'm a salesperson, so I've come to sell you Montana wind. Because you now buy dirty energy from a little town called Colstrip in Montana. And that coal strip, that plant, those 2 plants rather, are closing by 2022. And you need something else to replace that dirty energy. So you need Montana wind. And here's the deal. Our wind blows when yours doesn't. Our wind is clean. Of course, yours is too. Our wind is cost effective, and our wind can meet the needs of a growing state like Washington. So make a pitch for Montana wind when you talk to your elected officials, and let's turn this planet around. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to, Puget Sound Energy is trying to cap it. We know fair and aware our fair share of capping over here in the city of Tacoma. You know, it's one of the port's best methods to handle anything is just to cap it, put it in the ground and let somebody else deal with it, you know, 15 generations down the road. You know, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. You know, clean up your mess. You're going to make a mess, clean it up. It's what we're taught as kids, right? So, yeah, our next speaker up is Mike Jarnovich from Montana, Special Operations veteran.
I am indeed Mike Jarnovic from Missoula, Montana, and a recently retired Army Sergeant Major with 42 years of service to include 20 years working in the intelligence community. And I would like for us to reflect upon the true meaning of patriotism and the responsibility that citizenship entails. America and the planet are facing an unprecedented crisis of a magnitude that would be unimaginable to the Founding Fathers. And in the spirit that brought us the Declaration of Independence, we must, as a nation, declare our independence from those sources of energy that will, in the end, destroy us. I say this not only in regards to the use of finite resources like oil and coal, but also from the effects of this dirty energy addiction on U.S. national security, to include international terrorism. According to a Department of Defense-sponsored analysis, we can expect changes such as extreme drought, more frequent heat waves, desertification, flooding, and extreme weather events. The combined impact of these effects will intertwine with existing political, social, cultural, and economic trends with significant implications for U.S. interests worldwide. Thus, our country and our military will be asked to intervene in places like the Middle East and Africa, or most recently the Gulf Coast, to mitigate the consequences of unbridled dirty energy usage. This means more expenditures, more deployments, and more casualties for the men and women called upon to put boots on the ground for these global operations in defense of U.S. national interests. So, what can you, as an American citizen, do to curtail our dirty energy addiction and bring about a more secure nation? For starters, you can press Congress to address the key elements of clean energy utilization and let them know, as a patriot, you feel compelled to speak out in favor of legislation that takes the necessary steps to mitigate climate change and make our nation more secure. You can vote religiously, thereby becoming involved in the process that sees these changes through. And lastly, you can start taking personal responsibility for your own actions by reassessing your own energy consumption practices and how it impacts our nation. These are the hallmarks of a true patriot who understands that what we do as individuals affects the nation as a whole and therefore acts accordingly. If you truly want to support the troops and the nation, be a genuine patriot and do that which benefits the greater good for our nation and ultimately the planet as a whole.
Thank you for your service too, sir.
Yes.
And then the next speaker up that we have for you is Seisha Kearns, Deputy Director for Beyond Call Campaign in the Western region. Oh.
Hey everyone, it's great to be with you all today. I know there's a lot of hard things happening in our communities and all over the world that can give us some heavy hearts, and so I feel very heartened to be here with all of you today because I think this kind of togetherness and organizing is what allows us to have the antidote for those hard things to make a difference in our little slice of the world here. So I'm humbled and happy to be here with you all. And one of the things that I brought with me today is a copy of this letter from the Murray Energy Corporation. It was leaked a few weeks ago. Bob Murray, a coal baron out east, it's basically his wish list that he sent to the Trump administration, asking for all of the things that they should do to roll back environmental and public health protections. I keep this posted above my desk as a reminder of how intertwined the fossil fuel industry is with our government, and why our work today and all the work that you've been doing in all of your communities matters so much. So I'm keeping this with me today as part of that reminder. And when I think about that, I'm also thinking about people I've met along my time working with the Beyond Coal campaign. I used to live in Minnesota, and I was working there at the time when the Bush-Cheney energy plan came out, and it said we need to build over 200 new coal-fired power plants, or our electricity is not going to work. The lights are going to go out. That's what they told us. And I'm thinking about people I met living in the Midwest, like a group of activists in Kentucky who are holding bake sales to pay for legal fees to get pollution controls on a coal plant in their community. And I think about people like the Lummi Nation who burned a symbolic check on the shores of Cherry Point to say that their cultural values and the water matters more than any money they could ever get from the coal companies. And I think about folks in Montana. I think about the ranchers and tribal members in eastern Montana who came together to protect Otter Creek from coal mining, and they won too. And I think about all the leadership here, the leadership of the Puyallup, trying to stop this terrible project here that's going to benefit all of us. And it's really something that we need to take heart in. And that's what we're carrying into that room today. And I think about, what we were told about the lights going out if we didn't build those coal plants. And here we are in 2018, and most of those coal plants were not built. We said we're going to fight them all. People said, pick your battles, you can't fight them all. And we didn't. We chose to fight in every place, because how do you decide who's more important? And today, the lights didn't go out. We didn't build those coal plants. And I think about all those coal export terminals that were proposed on our West Coast waters, 6 of them. And people said, you can't fight the coal companies and the railroads. You're not going to win. And we stopped every single one of them. And we did that at the same time building strong community, building this connection between different places. And we did that in a way that really demonstrates the real value and power of good community organizing when we stay connected to each other and prepare ourselves for the next threat. And that's what you're all doing here today too. So I think about all these times people said you can't stand up to the coal industry, you can't stand up to the gas industry, you're not going to win. And we have. And so what do you think? Do you think we can get off coal by 2025 and replace it with 100% clean energy? I keep hearing that it's not possible. I keep hearing from folks at PSE and other folks that this isn't possible. We have to take our time, and I get that. Like, we do have to do this right. We're showing that it's possible, that we can not get caught up in this false choice. A false choice that we have to pick the future of our children, and we have to pick what's going to be a more livable future for our families versus the financial needs of today. That's a false choice. A false choice about whether we're going to protect our clean air and clean water in our communities or we're going to have jobs. That's a false choice. So we're not going to get caught up in that. We're going to stay together. We're going to be continuing with this really strong organizing all of you are doing. And I think we can get there. And it's a complex path, but I'm confident that in the words that we're sharing today, if it's not clear how we feel about what we need for our communities and what we think is going to be better, if it's not clear right now, it'll be clear after today, after this hearing with PSE and our decision makers. And so I'd like for everybody to think about this letter and this reminder of how invested the fossil fuel companies are in our government, and that we can choose something different, and really ask PSE to work with us to choose something different. That it might be a complex problem to solve, but it's a really simple path and a simple commitment to make. And I'd like for all of you to turn to the person next to you and say, thank you for showing up for your clean energy future today. Because that's how we're gonna get through this. We're gonna stay connected, and we're gonna win this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work you've done in fighting the coal strips and everything else too, and one of the things about coming together with a community of people like this is we all have our own fights. Each and every one of us have our own fights in our own yards, in our own cities, and we have to fight these corporations and continue to fight them. That's one of the things about coming together for a beautiful future for our kids, for future generations, is that we have to come together and put years of our life forward into each and every one of these fights. And that's the beauty of us, is that we fight with the spirit of the people. Yeah. So the next speaker up is David Schwartz from Sense.
All right.
Thank you. Hi, my name is David Schwartz, and I'm the co-chair of the brand new Eastside Committee of the Sierra Club. So please get on Facebook and look for Sierra Club Eastside Committee and join us, please. I'm also a board member of SENSE, the Coalition of Eastside Neighborhoods for Sensible Energy. And I'm here to talk about PSE's Energize Eastside project that would build new transmission lines running through dozens of Eastside neighborhoods, schools, and parks. The project would require higher poles, requiring the destruction of 300 acres of trees. That's about 270 football fields of mature trees that produce the oxygen that our families need to breathe. The carbon release from this tree destruction would be equivalent to adding 900,000 cars to our local roads. PSE, one of the very few privately held for-profit utilities in our region, wants to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a dangerous, old-fashioned transmission line instead of investing in proven smart technologies. Then, if loads increase in the future, because we didn't make those smart investments, PSE can say that we need new gas-powered plants to meet the need. That's a double benefit to PSE because guess who sells the gas? PSE. PSE is the one who benefits from forcing our dependence on fossil fuels even as other utilities are moving to renewables. And why are they doing all this? Well, it sure isn't because we need the energy, because our total energy use has been flat or declining for years. No, PSC's goal is simply to deliver hundreds of millions of dollars in additional profit for their Canadian and Australian owners, regardless of what it means for our local community. And who's going to pay for this new unnecessary project if we allow it? Energize Eastside will cost each and every Eastside family over $1,000 more on average in higher electricity costs. So when and if the time comes that we need to improve our energy infrastructure, a number of established, environmentally friendly technologies like batteries are already available to meet our future needs. These technologies are only getting better and cheaper with each passing day. We deserve and expect PSE to use only the best, most sensible, and carbon-free solutions available, not unnecessary, dirty ones designed to line their pockets. This bears repeating. There's just no reason for Energize Eastside other than to enrich PSE's owners. The good news is that we don't have to let this happen. I should display the banner. SENSE, along with our partners like Sierra Club and 350 Eastside, are preparing for a hearing in Bellevue where the future of this project will be decided. This fight will take money and your energy. Please visit sense.org, that's sense with a C, for information about SENSE's goals and how you can help us achieve them. Join us. Together we can defeat this terrible, unnecessary, wasteful, and dangerous project. Thank you.
So, in closing statements, that was our last speaker up here, and then I'm going to invite my brother up here to sing a song to close this out. But in closing statements, the black bus back there, to everybody that's gone to the Seattle City Council resolution meeting, the bus is back there. We're getting ready to pack it up at 1 o'clock. But with my closing statements, I want to acknowledge, I see this little girl over here, and I'm thinking about her future, and I'm thinking about that corporations literally gamble with their future, and it's time to put a stop to it. It's time to switch over to renewable energy. It's a time to put our foot down, and that's exactly what we're doing. So my prayer stays with all of you guys, every single one of you here, because we have to fight for our kids' future, and that's where we're at. Like I said earlier, the shit is hitting the fan, and it's happening faster than we thought it was going to happen. So with that being said, my prayers are with all you guys, and then my brother Devin Firethorn, I want to invite him up here to sing us a song to close it out.
Y'all remember, my name is Devin Don Fires, and I come from the Cloud family, the Puyallup Indian Reservation called Sailors, the fishermen. And yeah, this LNG is is a no-go on my heart. So what I'm about to sing is the Warrior song. When I heard it come from a bro named Concurrency. So
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to say that my husband Gary, are you new to the island?
No, I've been here